Christian Counsel by Fenelon. 17. On fidelity in small matters. St. Francis of Sales says that the great virtues and fidelity in small things are like a sugar and a salt. Sugar is more delicious, but of less frequent use, while salt enters into every article of our food. Great virtues are rare, they are seldom needed. When the occasion comes, we are prepared for it by everything which has preceded, excited by the greatness of the sacrifice, and sustained either by the brilliance of the action in the eyes of others, or by self-complacency in our ability to do such wonderful things. Small occasions, however, are unforeseen. They recur every moment and place us incessantly in conflict with our pride, our sloth, our self-esteem, and our passions. They are calculated thoroughly to subdue our wills and leave us no retreat. If we are faithful in them, nature will have no time to breathe and must die to all her inclinations. It would please us much better to make some great sacrifices, however painful and violent, on condition of obtaining liberty to follow our own pleasure and retain our old habits in little things. But it is only by this fidelity in small matters that the grace of true love is sustained and distinguished from the transitory excitements of nature. It is with piety as it is with our temporal goods. There is more danger from little expenses than from larger disbursements, and he who understands how to take care of what is insignificant will soon accumulate a large fortune. Everything great owns its greatness to the small elements of which it is composed, and he then loses nothing will soon be rich. Consider, on the other hand, that God does not so much regard our actions and the motive of love from which they spring, and the pliability of our wills to His. Men judge our deeds by their outward appearance. With God, that which is most dazzling in the eyes of man is of no account. What He desires is a pure intention, a will ready for anything, and even pliable in His hands, and an honest abandonment of self. And all this can be much more frequently manifested on small than on extraordinary occasions. There will also be much less danger from pride, and the trial will be far more certain. Indeed, it sometimes happens that we find it harder to part with a trifle than with an important interest. It may be more of a cross to abandon a vain amusement than to bestow a large sum in charity. We are the more easily deceived about these small matters, in proportion as we imagine them to be innocent, and ourselves indifferent to them. Nevertheless, when God takes them away, we may easily recognize in the pen of the deprivation how excessive and inexcusable were both the use and the attachment. If we are in the habit of neglecting little things, we shall be constantly offending our families, our domestics, and the public. No one can well believe that our piety is sincere when our behavior is loose and irregular in its little details. What ground have we for believing that we are ready to make the greatest sacrifices when we daily fail in offering the least? But the greatest danger of all consists in this, that by neglecting small matters, the soul becomes accustomed to unfaithfulness. We grieve the Holy Spirit. We return to ourselves. We think a little thing to be wanting towards God. On the other hand, true love can see nothing small. Everything that it can either please or displease God seems to be great. Not that true love disturbs the soul with the scruples, but it puts no limits to its faithfulness. It acts simply with God. It does not concern itself about those things which God does not require from it, so it never hesitates an instant about those which He does, be it great or small. So it is not by incessant care that we become faithful and exact in the smaller things, but simply by a love which is free from the reflections and fears of restless and scrupulous souls. We are, as it were, drawn along by the love of God. We have no desire to do anything but what we do, and no will in respect to anything which we do not do. And the very moment when God is following the soul, relentlessly pursuing into the smaller details, and seemingly depriving it of all its liberty, it found itself in a large place. I enjoy the perfect peace in Him. Happy soul. Though persons who are by nature less strict in small matters should lay down and preserve, you violate the most rigid laws in respect to them. They attempted to despise them. They habitually think little of them and do not sufficiently estimate their importance. They do not consider the insensible progress of our passions, and even forget their own sad experience on the subject. They prefer rather to be deluded by the promise of an imaginary firmness and to trust to their own courage that has so often deceived them than to subject themselves to a never-ceasing fidelity. It is a small matter, say they. True, but it is an amazing consequence to you. It's a matter that you love well enough to refuse to give it up to God, a matter which you snare at in words, that you may have a pretense to retain it, a small matter, but one that you withhold from your Maker, and which will prove your own. It's no nobility of soul that despises small things. On the contrary, it is a contracted spirit that regards as unimportant what it cannot trace to its necessary and overwhelming results. The more trouble it occasions us to be on our guard against small matters, the more need have we to fear negligence, to distrust our strength, and to interpose impregnable barriers between ourselves and the least remissness. Finally, judge by your own feelings. What would you think of a friend who owned everything to you, and who was willing from a sense of duty to serve you on those rare occasions which are called great, but who should manifest neither affection nor the least regard for your wishes in the common intercourse of life. Do not be frightened and this minute attention to small matters. It needs courage and first, but this is a penance which you deserve, which you need, and which will work it out for your peace and security. Without it, all is trouble and relapse. God will gradually make it pleasant, easy to you, for true love is obedient without constraint and without strife or effort.